The new FIA president has swung his axe, and Michael Masi will no longer be the Formula 1 race director in 2022, following the controversial events of the 2021 season finale. Masi will be replaced in the most senior role of the FIA's F1 race management structure as part of a number of changes to be instigated following the governing body's review into last year's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The FIA will hope this draws a line under a saga that began with the outcome of that race and the 2021 World Championship being altered and has rumbled on for 2 months amid a huge outcry. Masi has been the race director since 2019, having assumed the role at short notice following the death of Charlie Whiting on the eve of the Australian Grand Prix. But his tenure has had plenty of flashpoints, none greater than the way he handled a late safety car period in Abu Dhabi last year in a manner not prescribed by the regulations in order to set up a one-lap restart. Masi only allowed the 5-lapped cars between long-time race leader Lewis Hamilton and his title rival Max Verstappen to unlap themselves before the race restart, and not the other 3 of Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel and Mick Schumacher. He had previously indicated that none of the lapped cars would be allowed through at all, which would have put a buffer between Hamilton and Verstappen when the race resumed. Crucially, Masi also ignored the rule that states the safety car must come into the pits at the end of the following lap. Had that been followed, the race would have ended under the safety car. Instead, Hamilton was left directly vulnerable to Max Verstappen, who had been able to pit under the safety car for fresh tyres, and Verstappen overtook him on the final lap to win the Grand Prix and the title. The outcry that followed prompted the FIA to acknowledge that F1's image was being tarnished, and it instigated a review into what happened in Abu Dhabi. One of its conclusions, announced by new FIA President Mohamed Ben Sulayem, is to remove Masi from the position of race director. Masi will be replaced by Eduardo Freitas and Niels Wittig, who will rotate the position between them during the season and be assisted by a permanent senior advisor in Herbie Blash, who was formerly Whiting's long-time deputy. Masi may not disappear entirely, as he will be offered a new position within the FIA. But the new race management structure will be implemented immediately, starting with the first pre-season test at Barcelona at the end of February. While the end of the Abu Dhabi race last year triggered a huge outcry from Hamilton supporters and put intense scrutiny onto the FIA that made Masi's job seem untenable, there had been growing discontent in Formula 1 before then around the quality of officiating. There have been questions over how race control has handled certain situations, and the standard of stewarding has been called into question as well, with mixed messaging over what is acceptable. That's why the FIA's reforms go beyond changing the race director. A new virtual race control room will be created that's been likened to football's video assistant referee, which will assist the race director in making decisions. As expected, direct radio communications with the race director during the race will not be broadcast, and team bosses will not be able to interfere in order to protect the race director from any pressure and allow him to take decisions peacefully. This will prevent a repeat of the direct exchanges last year between Masi and the likes of Red Bull boss Christian Horner and Mercedes counterpart Toto Wolff, which were broadcast for the first time in 2021. The FIA says it will still be possible to ask questions to the race director according to a well-defined and non-intrusive process. It's likely that only team managers will be allowed to speak to race control to obtain key information, and these messages will be vetted before the race director is involved. There will also be a reassessment of the procedures defining how cars unlap themselves behind the safety car. Ben Sulayem said, "With this plan, the FIA opens the way for a new step forward in Formula 1 refereeing. Without the referees, there is no sport. Respect and support of the referees is in the essence of the FIA. That is why these structural changes are crucial in a context of strong development and the legitimate expectations of drivers, teams, manufacturers, organisers, and of course the fans." His plan has been presented to members of the World Motorsport Council and the FIA Senate, who have apparently provided their full support. The new rotating race directors come with a lot of experience, Wittig from the DTM and Freitas from the World Endurance Championship. By bringing in new people and a new structure, the FIA is indirectly admitting that what came before wasn't good enough. Masi specifically has been at the centre of high-profile issues before Abu Dhabi, such as the start line crash at a safety car restart at Mugello in 2020, and the decision to start the second part of qualifying in Turkey that year when a recovery vehicle had not yet left a runoff area. His capacity under pressure has been called into question on multiple occasions. Managing a Grand Prix is nothing if not pressured, and this is where Masi seemed ill-suited. At times, he seemed to struggle to judge the best way to juggle the responsibilities of managing a given session in the most appropriate manner with the external pressures of the show. Everyone wants the officials to be immune to the show, but they are inevitably acutely aware of it. How the end of the safety car period at Mugello was handled was interpreted by many insiders as the FIA trying to ensure a more entertaining restart. A desire to crack on with Q2 in Turkey after various delays is what prompted the session to go green before the track was clear and safe. And it was the desperation to avoid ending the race and season behind a safety car that prompted Masi to do what he did in Abu Dhabi. So while Masi's vulnerability to pressure manifested itself in the most extreme manner in the 2021 finale, there were signs of cracks well before that. What Ben Sulayem calls the FIA refereeing system has therefore undergone an encouraging amount of change aimed at the right areas. The greater support system and the removal of some peripheral but time-consuming responsibilities are an acknowledgement that perhaps no race director could cope with the total workload that Whiting had gradually adopted and got used to. Had this kind of structure and job existed before, it's reasonable to argue that Masi wouldn't have acted in the manner he did in Abu Dhabi. That's what the FIA's changes hint at least. It's not being said in such explicit terms because nothing is. There's an obvious unresolved element from this in that the details of the review aren't being disclosed. And that will upset a lot of fans and will deny full closure for anyone who hasn't had this information directly presented to them. Because who knows what the FIA really thinks about what happened or what really went wrong and what the full logic and reasoning is behind these subsequent decisions. But while this is a shame, it's not a great surprise. If the FIA said words to the effect of Masi made the wrong decision, this should not have been handled this way, it should have been handled this way, then there would be persistent calls for the result to be changed. It never ever seemed likely that the FIA would leave itself open to that. Instead, the changes are about two things: trying to move on from Abu Dhabi and making sure it doesn't happen again. Ultimately, removing Masi was key to any chance the FIA had of achieving both those objectives.